Can you give us an overview of your writing process?
I guess for me, the writing process always comes down to, first, it's like excitement about the potential for something, even if I don't know what the ending is or the beginning is. Just like, oh, that's an interesting, usually world, like an interesting world, or and characters within that world, and like a conflict there. And I'll usually know if it sparks something, and I think, okay, there's something there. There's a lot of opportunity there. Not just one kind of story or one scene, but opportunity all the time in the concept to have conflict or humor or whatever it is. And really then what I like to do is just write whatever scene seems fun to me starting out. It's really hard to start out on something new. There's a long road ahead, and so just try and start with something fun. Like, what scene excites me? Like early in my writing career after school, I had a feeling I'm not a writer. That was just the feeling I had. Maybe I could co-write, but I had lost the confidence that I was a writer, like a writer, And getting back, that's how I got back into it, was just, there was one scene, I didn't know what the rest of the movie would be, but I just really wanted to write this scene. And I think that's a great way to approach it. And it lets you explore the characters. For me, I want to see how do they talk to each other, just kind of like let it happen. And you'll start to think, okay, this character's fun. I thought this character only existed in this one scene. Maybe this character should exist in the whole movie because they bring something different that keeps it going. And just being open and exploring. And generally then I might have 50 pages, 60 pages, after a few weeks of that. They're not all usable, but there's a sense of what the story is and what's exciting there. And then it's figuring out, well, what, if I don't already know exactly where it's going to go in the end, it's figuring that out, from there. Generally, I write by myself. I've co-written a few things. In Hard Miles, I co-wrote with my producer, and we'd done that before. We'd co-written one other script. And that's something I like doing when someone else is kind of saying, this is the thing we're doing, and then I feel like we can match each other in terms of commitment to it. That's kind of, I guess, not really about writing process, but yeah.
Well, do you remember what the first scene for Hard Miles was that you started, or did you actually start from the beginning?
So that one was such a different process because, so I don't actually remember, but that was just a lot of talking about like what could this be? Because it could have been anything almost, if it's just about the school and the bike ride. And we just wanted to keep it close to the real story as much as possible. But sort of after that part of the process, after writing scenes and figuring that out, then I will look at outlining and trying to think, how do we make it into one cohesive story, and what are the underlying themes, what are the underlying conflicts? I saw you interviewed him, John Truby, I really love his book.
He's awesome.
And I think what I love about it is even though he does sort of have these are the mile markers, I don't really focus on that part. It's more the sense of, what are the underlying themes? What's the moral argument? What's the, how do you try and get the most out of your premise? So it's really asking a lot of questions, writing in notebooks. Okay, so really, what is the premise of this? Like, not just a log line, but what's the conflict? Why is it this character at this time doing this thing? And just trying to really zero in at that point. What are the kind of mechanics happening under the surface of the script that gives it the drama or humor and all of that, and trying to dial in on that as much as possible. And for me, it's often a lot of, especially for something like Hard Miles, because we were trying to make it, so we're trying to get a script done so we can show it to people. So it was kind of a process of just, it feels like spinning wheels, but writing that stuff out over and over again, like what really is the moral argument here? What really is the promise of the premise, and how do we make sure that we're delivering on that? And if we're missing something, like do another pass and try and weave in the thing that we feel like we're missing. And just kind of doing that over and over again, of finding layers and nuance and hopefully connections where things plant and pay off and feel like they're all working together as one singular thing, like one singular story, as opposed to like an A story and a B story, like you'd have in a TV show, which might not necessarily thematically connect because it doesn't have to, on a TV show. But I think in a movie, it's trying to really make everything about the one idea as much as you can.
It sounds like your law school career, 2 years you said?
Well, I never went to law school. Just, it was like 2 years before I would have had to go that I started focusing on film, but yeah.
But it sounds like that linear thinking has found its way into how you work with story structure.
I think so. I mean, I think there's something of you have your argument or your case, even though for me, I don't look at film or art as being like didactic and generally don't want to do that. I still think there's something you're trying to say. And as you're working, you have a sense of, well, this thing isn't what we're trying to say. This part, this scene, whatever, it just isn't part of it. It isn't part of that whole for whatever reason, and trying to drill into that. I guess the same way, if you were trying to literally argue in a courtroom or something, your opposition might call out relevancy, like is it relevant to what you're trying to, the point you're trying to make or the emotion you're trying to get across. And so, I think it's that weird balance of being trying to be open and creative and write from the heart and not restrict yourself and be truthful, and then to put on a different hat and go back and say, okay, look at it with under magnifying glass and say what really is happening here or should be happening here, and how do we mold that into what it's supposed to be. And honestly, by the end of the process, I don't even feel like I wrote it, because it just seems like all of these different sides of me, I guess, taking a different pass on it, and hopefully then you feel good about it.
Sure, you're kind of pleading your case for the movie viewers. And how will we feel toward Greg Townsend, his character and the other kids in it. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing on that is also realizing what a script's purpose is at each stage of the process. Because it really is different at each stage of the process. And there was a time on Hard Miles where we're going back and forth on all this stuff with the script, and we determined, well, the point of the script now is for us to send it to someone who can play Greg and who will want to play Greg based on what the script is. And so let's just focus only on that for this next pass, is making sure the script is sort of deep and rich enough that an actor will want to give us the 5 weeks or whatever we need to make it, and find the time to do that.
Yeah, and I thought your choice for Matthew Modine was excellent, especially in the beginning when you see him on the bike. I guess he was getting up in the morning or whatever, puts the fan on. You feel there's a heaviness. You don't know exactly what burden he's carrying there, but you're intrigued. Mm-hmm. You're like, I want to know, why is this guy on this bike? But I'm feeling like it's not a light ride for him. There's like something weighing him down, and I love it. So, will you write a treatment before you write a screenplay?
So generally, no. And even in things like as far as treatments go, I generally have to write some scenes and things like that to sort of get inside of it. I have maybe written just a few scenes and then try to go back and write a treatment. But usually, the only times I've done that is if it's something required, like a requirement for like a grant or a work situation, where people are going to need a treatment sooner than I could really write a whole script, and then also maybe payments are coming in stages, and so the treatment is the first stage that you could really hit, and so it's kind of a matter of like trying to get as much of my process done where I can then do a treatment the same way I'd go back and look through an old, a first draft and figure out structure. So yeah, it's a weird, to me, like a treatment always feels a little bit more like something for someone else, to have an understanding of the script. but it is a chance for exploration, and finding a path. But it's not quite as, doesn't feel quite as full or like fulfilling as actually writing.